You've just become Sultan Mehmed III, December 1595. You're 29 years old, and you've waited your entire life for this moment. Your father Murad III is dead after ruling for 21 years. The empire is yours. The throne you've dreamed about since childhood is finally within reach. But before you can rule, before you can address the wars with Persia and Austria, before you can even fully mourn your father, you have a legal obligation to fulfill, one that makes your stomach turn every time you think about it. 19 of your brothers are alive. The youngest is just 2 years old, barely walking. The oldest is 11. You've known them your whole life, played with them as children in the harem courtyards, studied alongside them with the same tutors, shared meals during Ramadan. Their mothers are women you've known for decades, concubines who served your father and raised their sons in the same palace where you were raised. They're not your enemies. They're not conspirators plotting against you. They're children. But Ottoman law is explicit. The Kanunname Osman, written by your great-great-great-grandfather Mehmed the Conqueror in 1478, states clearly, "Whichever of my sons inherits the sultanate, it behooves him to kill his brothers for the order of the world. Most of the ulema allow this. Let them therefore act accordingly." Your advisors are waiting in the throne room for your command. The mute executioners are already preparing their silk cords. Your mother is in her chambers, knowing that before sunrise she'll have only one living son instead of 20. Before we explore this brutal law and its 3.5 centuries of implementation, subscribe and comment where you're watching from, because what you're about to learn will completely change how you see both Ottoman history and the terrible logic of absolute power. The Kanunname didn't appear from nowhere. It was written in response to a very real problem that had torn apart Islamic empires for centuries: succession wars. When a ruler died in most Islamic states, his sons would fight for the throne, not just political maneuvering, actual warfare. Brothers killing brothers on battlefields, provinces choosing sides, civil wars that could last for years, weakening the entire realm while enemies waited to strike. The Ottomans had experienced this firsthand. In 1402, after Sultan Bayezid I was captured by Timur, his 4 sons fought a devastating civil war that lasted 11 years. Thousands died. The empire nearly collapsed. The Ottomans became vassals to their enemies during this period of weakness. Mehmed the Conqueror, who conquered Constantinople and transformed the Ottomans into a world power, decided this could never happen again. His solution was brutal in its simplicity: eliminate the possibility of succession conflict by eliminating all potential rival claimants. The law he wrote was clear and specific. When a sultan died, his designated successor would take the throne. Immediately, before any rival could gather supporters, all other princes would be executed. Not imprisoned, not exiled, executed. The method was specified too: strangulation with a silk bowstring or cord. This met 2 requirements. It was quick and relatively painless, and it spilled no blood. Islamic tradition held that spilling royal blood was particularly heinous. Strangulation avoided this technical violation while still ensuring the princes died. The executioners were selected specifically for this task: deaf mutes, men who could neither hear the prince's pleas nor speak about what they witnessed. These men served the sultan directly, owed everything to him, and could be trusted to carry out the most sensitive orders without question or testimony. This wasn't hidden policy. It was codified law, approved by religious scholars, integrated into the legal framework of the empire. Fratricide became not just permitted, but required for the stability of the state. You're standing in the throne room of Topkapi Palace, December 1595. Your father has been dead for 6 hours. You've been sultan for 3. and now you must give the order that will haunt you for the rest of your life. Your Grand Vizier is explaining the necessity. Your Majesty, the princes must be secured before word of your father's death spreads beyond the palace. Any delay gives potential rebels time to rally around one of your brothers. He's not wrong. You know the history. You know what happened to previous empires when succession was unclear. But knowing the logic doesn't make this easier.
All of them.
You hear yourself asking, though you already know the answer. The law is clear, my sultan. All brothers of the reigning sultan must be executed to prevent fitna, discord that could tear the realm apart. You think about little Ahmed, just 2 years old. What threat could he possibly pose? But your advisors remind you he won't always be 2. In 15 years, he could be a rallying point for dissatisfied nobles. In 20 years, he could claim he's the rightful sultan. The law doesn't care about current threat. It eliminates future possibility. You give the order. Your voice sounds distant, like someone else is speaking. Proceed according to the law. The executioners bow and leave the throne room. You know where they're going. To the prince's chambers in the harem. To the rooms where your brothers are probably sleeping, unaware that their half-brother's accession means their death. You want to follow, to witness what you've ordered, but your advisors won't allow it. It would be unseemly, your majesty. The deed will be done with dignity and efficiency. Dignity, as if there's any dignity in strangling children. You sit on your new throne and wait for it to be over. The palace is silent, except for the distant sound of footsteps, doors opening, and then nothing. The mutes do their work quietly. In the harem, 19 mothers wait. Some know what's coming, others are still in denial, praying that somehow their son will be spared. Your mother, Safia Sultan, is the only one whose child will see sunrise. She's the Valide Sultan now, the Queen Mother, the most powerful woman in the empire. But that power came at a price she'll carry forever. She sits in her chambers, surrounded by the other women, the mothers of the princes who are dying tonight. Some are weeping, some are silent with shock, some are praying frantically, bargaining with God for miracles they know won't come. There's Aisha, mother of 11-year-old Selim. She's been in the harem since she was 16, raised her son with hopes he might distinguish himself, perhaps become a governor, maybe even, but no, those hopes are ending tonight. There's Humasha, mother of 2-year-old Ahmed. She's holding her son, who's confused by his mother's tears. He doesn't understand why she won't put him down, why she keeps kissing his face, why other women keep coming to say goodbye to him. The law forbids mothers from interfering with fratricide. To attempt to save their sons would be treason, would result in their own execution, and change nothing about the prince's fate. So they can only wait, hold their children, and know that in a few hours they'll be mothers of corpses instead of sons. Some of the women blame your mother. If she'd borne daughters instead of sons, if she'd raised you differently, if she'd somehow prevented this moment. But Safia knows she's as trapped by the system as they are. She didn't create this law, she just survived it by having the right son. The footsteps approach. The mute executioners move through the harem like ghosts. They come to the first prince's chamber, then the second, then the third. The mothers can hear nothing. The mutes work silently, but they know. Each time the executioners emerge and move to the next room, another child is dead. By dawn, 19 chambers will be empty. 19 small bodies will be prepared for burial. 19 mothers will begin grieving sons they raised, knowing this day might come. Prince Ahmed is 2 years old. He doesn't understand why the strange men are in his room, why his mother is crying, why everything feels wrong. The mutes approach his small bed. His mother, Humasha, is holding him, has been holding him for hours, knowing these are her last moments with her child. She's singing to him softly, a lullaby she's sung since he was born. When the executioners reach for him, she holds tighter, not resisting. She knows that's futile, but just holding her baby as long as she can. The chief executioner waits patiently. He's done this before. He understands these are sacred moments for mothers, even as he's there to end them. Finally, Humasha loosens her grip. She kisses Ahmed's forehead one last time, whispers words of love he's too young to understand, and releases him to the executioners. They're surprisingly gentle. This isn't cruelty for its own sake, it's duty. They lay the small prince on his bed, one man holding his shoulders, another preparing the silk cord. Ahmed starts to cry, frightened by the strangers, calling for his mother. Humasha turns away. She can't watch, can't bear to see the moment the light leaves his eyes. The strangulation is quick. The executioners are experienced. Within seconds, Ahmed stops struggling. Within a minute, he's dead. They arrange his small body on the bed, hands folded across his chest. From a distance, he could be sleeping. They bow to Humasha, a gesture of respect for her loss, and move to the next chamber. 18 more brothers to go. Outside the harem, you sit on your throne. You're now the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, one of the most powerful positions on earth. You command armies, rule millions, make decisions that shape history. But you couldn't save your 2-year-old brother. The law wouldn't allow it. Your advisors gather the next morning to congratulate you on a smooth succession. The Grand Vizier is particularly pleased. No blood spilled in the streets, no armies mobilized, no provinces declaring for rival claimants. The law has served its purpose once again. He's right. Compared to European succession crises, the Wars of the Roses in England, the succession wars in France, the constant conflicts in the Holy Roman Empire, the Ottoman system is remarkably efficient. One night of controlled violence prevents years of civil war. But you're looking at the alternative calculation. 19 dead princes versus potentially thousands dead in civil war. Children murdered versus soldiers killed in battle. Concentrated evil versus diffused chaos. Your religious advisors explain the Islamic jurisprudence supporting the law. They cite the concept of preventing fitna, discord, and division in the community. They reference scholars who argue that the death of a few to preserve the peace of many is permissible necessity. The law of fratricide has kept the empire stable for over a century. The Sheikhul Islam tells you. Your great-grandfather Selim I, your grandfather Suleiman, your father Murad, all followed this law. The empire has grown stronger with each generation because succession is clear and unchallenged. He doesn't mention that Selim I killed his brothers, that Suleiman executed his own son Mustafa on suspicion of rebellion, that your father Murad had 5 of his brothers strangled when he took the throne. The system works through accumulated horror. Each generation of princes grows up knowing what awaits them. Each sultan carries the weight of the brothers he killed. Each mother raises sons while knowing they're likely being groomed for execution, and it does prevent civil wars. The Ottoman Empire experiences remarkable stability compared to other great powers. When a sultan dies, there's no question about who inherits. No rival claimants raising armies, no provinces splitting allegiance, just 19 dead children every generation for 3.5 centuries. Not every prince died on succession night. Some sultans showed mercy or pragmatism that looked like mercy, and those who survived learned that there are fates worse than a quick death. After your reign, your nephew Ahmed III will become sultan at just 13 years old. He'll do something unprecedented, refuse to kill his brothers, not from mercy exactly, but from desperate necessity. Ahmed has no sons yet. If he dies without an heir and has already executed his brothers, the Ottoman line ends, so his brother Mustafa survives, along with several others. But survival comes with conditions. They're moved to the Kafes, the cage, a section of Topkapi Palace that's part prison, part gilded tomb, luxurious rooms with no exit, comfortable beds where princes sleep alone for decades, gardens they can see but not enter. Princes in the cage receive no education in statecraft, no military training, no preparation for rule. They're kept deliberately ignorant of the outside world, denied books about governance, forbidden from contact with anyone outside the palace. Some princes spend their entire adult lives in the cage. Mustafa will be locked away for 14 years. When he finally emerges to become sultan, his mind will be so damaged by isolation that he can barely function. He'll be deposed twice, spend more time imprisoned, and die after a reign marked by instability and confusion. Other princes go completely mad in the cage. Some develop what we'd now recognize as severe mental illness from the isolation. Others become so passive and broken that they're harmless even if released. The Kafes becomes the alternative to fratricide, and in many ways it's worse. At least execution is quick. The cage is slow death, decades of psychological torture, the systematic destruction of human potential. You think about this as you rule. Would your brothers have preferred the cage to death? Would slow madness be better than quick strangulation? You'll never know. The law didn't give them that option. The law gave them death. 20 years into your reign, you watch your own sons growing up. You have more than 30 children, and you know with absolute certainty that most of them will die violently. Your mother, Safiye, understands this better than anyone. She survived by having you, the son who became sultan, but she watched 19 other mothers lose their children that first night of your reign. She knows what's coming for her grandchildren. She starts making calculations. Which of your sons shows the most promise for rule? Which should be groomed for the sultanate? The others, should she even allow herself to love them, knowing they're likely dead men walking? Some concubines in your harem try a different strategy. They pray for daughters. A daughter can't inherit the throne, which means she can't be a succession threat. Daughters live, sons die. You think about the system you're perpetuating. Your sons are being raised knowing that when you die, they'll either become sultan or be executed. There's no middle ground, no quiet retirement, no provincial governorship where they could live out their days peacefully. The older ones already understand. You see it in their eyes, the calculation, the ambition, the fear. They study harder, train more diligently, try to make themselves indispensable, as if being valuable enough might save them. It won't. Value doesn't matter. Only succession order matters. You consider changing the law. You're the sultan. Your word is absolute. You could decree that your brothers should have lived, that your sons won't have to murder each other, but your advisors remind you what happens when the law is ignored. Rebellions, civil wars, the thing Mehmed the Conqueror feared. So you do nothing, and your sons continue growing up in a palace that's preparing them either for absolute power or certain death, with nothing in between. You die in 1603 after ruling for 8 years. Your son Ahmed becomes Sultan Ahmed I at 13 years old, and he makes the decision you couldn't. He refuses to kill his brothers. The advisors are horrified. Your Majesty, the law is clear. The princes must be secured. But Ahmed is adamant. I have no sons. If I die tomorrow, the Ottoman line ends if I've killed my brothers. They will live. It's pragmatism disguised as mercy, but it changes everything. For the first time in over a century, princes survive succession. But the system adapts. Since princes can't be killed, they're locked in the Kafes instead. The psychological torture replaces physical execution. Over the next 2 centuries, the law gradually erodes. Some sultans kill their brothers, Others don't. The Kafes remains for those who survive. The empire grows weaker as succession becomes less certain. Finally, in 1808, Sultan Mehmed II officially abolishes the law of fratricide. After 330 years, Ottoman princes will no longer be executed simply for being born. The reformers celebrate this as humanitarian progress, and it is ending systematic murder is objectively good. But you wonder what the mothers of those 19 princes you killed would think. Your reform comes 3 centuries too late for the hundreds of princes strangled in their beds, too late for the mothers who raised sons knowing they'd die young, too late for the sultans who carried the weight of fratricide for their entire reigns. The empire survives another century without the law of fratricide, but it also experiences more succession crises, more instability, more of the chaos that Mehmed the Conqueror's law was designed to prevent. Was the law worth it? Did those 19 dead brothers buy enough stability to justify their murders? History doesn't answer that question. It just documents the horror and moves on. Walk through Istanbul today, and you'll see Topkapi Palace preserved as a museum. Tourists wander through the harem, admire the architecture, take photos of the beautiful tile work and courtyards. The guides mention the law of fratricide, usually briefly, as an interesting historical footnote. The sultans had to kill their brothers to prevent civil war. It's presented as a curious custom, maybe a bit barbaric, but understandable given the times. What they don't convey is the systematic horror of it. The 3.5 centuries of sons raised to either kill or be killed. The mothers who gave birth knowing they were likely producing corpses. The sultans who carried the weight of fratricide for their entire reigns. Mehmed III, whose story we've followed, killed 19 brothers in one night. He lived another 8 years, died at 37, and was remembered as a competent but unremarkable sultan. History barely mentions the mass execution that began his reign. Those 19 princes have no monuments, no memorials, no historical record beyond brief mentions in succession chronicles. We don't know most of their names. We don't know what they might have become, what they might have contributed, who they might have been. They were erased as efficiently as the law intended, reduced to footnotes in the story of Ottoman stability. The law of fratricide worked exactly as designed. It prevented succession wars. It kept the empire stable during its greatest period of expansion. It eliminated the kind of devastating civil conflicts that tore apart other empires. But it did this through the systematic murder of children, through institutionalized fratricide that required each generation of rulers to become murderers, through a legal framework that normalized the killing of innocents for the sake of political stability. This is the uncomfortable truth about governance and power. Sometimes systems that work are also horrifying. Sometimes stability comes at a price paid in innocent blood. Sometimes the choice isn't between good and evil, but between different types of evil with different costs. The Ottomans chose concentrated horror, a few dead princes each generation, over diffused chaos, civil wars that could kill thousands. They chose the law of fratricide over the law of succession warfare. Was it the right choice? That depends on how you calculate. If you count total deaths, fratricide probably killed fewer people than the civil wars it prevented. If you count moral weight, ordering the execution of your own infant brothers seems infinitely worse than fighting armed rivals on a battlefield. Modern ethics rejects this entire framework. We don't accept that murdering children is ever justified, no matter what stability it might provide. We've built legal systems that prevent such calculations from ever being formally encoded into law, but we should remember that these laws existed, that they were written by intelligent people, approved by religious scholars, implemented by rulers who saw themselves as just and righteous, that for 3.5 centuries, one of the world's great empires ran on the systematic murder of princes. If understanding the Ottoman law of fratricide disturbed you, share this video and subscribe for more history that refuses to sanitize the past. Comment where you're watching from and what shocked you most about this system. The next time someone talks about the good old days or romanticizes historical empires, remember the 19 princes strangled in one night. Remember the mothers who raised sons knowing they'd die young. Remember the sultans who had to become murderers to keep their thrones. The law of fratricide is gone, but understanding why it existed, how it functioned, and what it cost helps us recognize similar calculations in our own time. The way states still choose stability over justice, order over mercy, pragmatic evil over chaotic good. The princes are long dead. The sultans who killed them are dust. But the question remains, what price is too high for stability? And who gets to make that calculation? History doesn't answer. It just asks us to remember the cost.